The fate of this world was preordained in an instant by a solitary man. Unwilling to martyr himself to restore its balance, condemned the world to the decay you see. In that moment, the unraveling began. Now it is really played out. This world teeters on the brink of collapse. Its fragile balance cannot hold. Take heed, a forgotten history lies within. Know thyself, though it may destroy you.
Mr. Crowley.
Every woman is made of stars, so much more than human. Trying to find the light while we're living in the dark, trying to set it right in this world apart. It's set asunder and it's caving in, cursed from birth with original sin. Now let's begin to elevate, let's bring the love to this world of hate. Let love be the law, but don't love at all. Love under will and will never fall. If we give our love to the evil one, then we lose it all when we speak in tongues. Can't understand our fellow man, like Genesis 11 says. One language of the world with a common speech, till this God came down to divide and see. Now the unity of mankind's kin was all undone on a jealous whim by a jealous God from up above, who crucified his only son. Now we bathe in the blood of the innocent and betray one another with a single kiss. And impunity's our only hope from this one true God. What a goddamn joke. Chief of it all. We're the teachers of youth and the students of old. We're the fire of life overcoming the cold. We're the sunburst and the sunlight. We're the crescent moon illuminating the night. We're the dusk and the dawn and the chosen one. We're the system operators oscillating the sun. We're the lion's gate creating our fate, traversing all dimensions through time and space. We're the masters of our own reality, and anything less is a travesty. So let it be finished what's already begun. Let everything dividing us be undone. Let us build another tower representing our power. Let us live in harmony each and every hour. Let it all transform and prepare to transcend. Complete shutdown and the system resets. And never forget everything you've learned. And remember this song when it's all restored. From this point forward, no more remorse. Just pure love as we plot the course. An unstoppable force, and we'll never submit to the menacing scourge of this God virus.
Your destiny is fulfilled. Though you have destroyed every creature who might call you kin, the world is born anew. The cycle of birth and death, stalled and stagnant these long years, once again begins to flow.
What is up, ladies and gentlemen? Chris Gio here, coming to you from Beyond the Veil. Just up in the middle of the night, figured I'd do a quick little show for anybody that wants to join in early this morning. And I may open up the phone lines, 612-398-0600. I see a lot of awesome people in the chat. It's been a little while since we've done a show, but there's a couple things that I wanted to talk about. I wanted to talk about the Georgia Guidestones. Of course, you've probably heard somebody blew them up. Who blew them up? That's what I want to talk about and kind of speculate on. They decided to go ahead and demolish all of the monuments as well. And this is on July 6th. July 5th, CERN was fired up again. And the last show that we did was talking about how we're going through a timeline shift, how we're about to cross into another part of what I call the Matrix reset process. It started May of 2018 4 years, 7 months is a countdown, leading us into about December 2022, January 2023, somewhere around there. And that's just cycle 1. And then there's more work to be done after that. But I'm watching things happen, like, of course, the big lockdowns that happened in 2020, right in the middle of this. I'm watching the energies kind of flow back and forth. And I'm seeing signs out there like the Georgia Guidestones being demolished, CERN firing back up, many people talking about disconnecting from toxic energies too. And I posted something on Facebook earlier about a friend of mine who is just kind of a pain in the ass. I love the guy. Don't get me wrong. I love the guy. But he's kind of a pain in the ass. And he's just now starting to get it. And I've known him forever. And the thing is, like, he's always bringing my frequency down, because his frequency is down there at that lower level, and I'm having to dumb myself down to interact with him. And I like bringing him up, but it's becoming more and more and more of a chore. So I posed a question out there. What do we do? At what point do we just say, hey, you know what? We've said what we need to say. You can always tune into all of our shows and then kind of catch up. But I feel like we here at Beyond the Veil are kind of like the post-grad, and people are now starting to grasp it. It's not elementary level stuff. Now they're starting to get into middle school type of stuff. It's funny because I posted a little rant on Facebook earlier about Yahweh and the demiurge and all of that stuff. And people were responding saying, oh, there's a new theory going around that Yahweh is actually Satan. And I was like, yeah, that's interesting. When we put that out in 2015, we got tomatoes thrown at us. I remember this. Sorry, wrong button. I remember this. I went on the Kev Baker show, and I was talking about the Lucifer Deception, which was a film that I was working on at the time. And I kind of did it in a series of films called The Divine Feminine Rising. And it kind of took you through some of the Gnostic texts. It took you through some of the information that was removed. It took you through Paterfamilias. And then the next chapter, which we never did, was supposed to be Lucifer. And the Divine Feminine Rising ends with, who is Lucifer? And the conclusion is that Lucifer is the light bearer, that it's wisdom, and that this Yahweh character is actually the devil. And in the end of that video series, I quote a Bible verse. I don't remember which one it was, but it says, it's something that Jesus said, you are of your father, the devil. You speak in his tongue and he lies, and, so on and so forth. I don't remember off the top of my head what the Bible verse is, but we released this in like 2014, 2015. And that's starting to become mainstream now too, which is great. I'm seeing a lot of things that we were talking about 7, 8 years ago, 5 years ago, starting to become mainstream, which means that people are catching up. But what are we, the post-grads, supposed to do as everybody catches up? Are we just supposed to just sit back and just kind of chill? Maybe that's what we're supposed to do. Maybe we're just supposed to just sit back and just be like, cool, everybody's catching up. But time is running out, and that's the thing. The countdown clock is kind of ticking away on us. I think a lot of us feel this out there, and so I think that we need to prepare for exiting the matrix. Do whatever it is that we need to do, whether it's enjoy the matrix, do more inner work, a combination of the both. Disconnect, detach from all energies, all attachments, especially negative, toxic attachments and things like that. And especially now with CERN firing back up, I have a few hypotheses as to what happened last time CERN was fired up, and now what we're going to start to see as CERN gets fired up again. So let's get into it.
The sky so far away tonight.
Raw consciousness does not require a savior, but rather, raw consciousness requires only knowledge of oneself and the power to access it. Remember this, as we unlock an even greater gnosis from beyond the veil.
From the fabulous Las Vegas, Nevada, good morning, good evening, wherever you may be across the nation, around the world. I'm Chris Gio. I will be taking you beyond the veil this evening. I am not joined by my lovely twin and co-pilot, Mrs. Gio, as she is getting some rest post-surgery. She's recovering a lot quicker and a lot better than we ever thought. So things are looking really, really, really good. And she's been sleeping, and they said, you know, she's going to be tired for a little bit afterwards. And so I didn't want to push her too much. And I've kept her up a lot because we've been having a lot of fun lately. I'll just leave it at that. But I've been keeping her up and wearing her out. And so she's very happy, and I'm very happy as well. But that being said, I'll try to get her to do a show tomorrow because she's got a lot of interesting insight. But I was sitting here writing some music, and I'm like, I'm not really feeling the music. Let me jump on and hang out with my tribe. It's been a while. It's been like 2 or 3 weeks or something like that. And if you're not subscribed to the Patreon, patreon.com/BTV Tribe, there's a lot of little, short little videos that I've posted there. Nothing too groundbreaking or anything like that, but I like to stay in touch with everybody nonetheless. But, the big thing going on right now is, of course, the big thing going on over at the Georgia Guidestones. All of a sudden there was some kind of explosion that happened, and I'll play that here on the screen. It's interesting because as somebody commented and said that the Georgia Guidestones are under 24/7 surveillance, and nobody caught who placed the bombs. All they caught was the actual explosion itself. So let me see if I can replay this video again. I didn't realize it was going to be that quick, but yeah, it's interesting because I was asking myself, the first thought is, who is it? Is it one of us, or is it one of them that's doing it? And what I mean by us is like people on our side of the fence, people who want to fight the quote unquote new world. What do they call it? The new lib order? Yeah, they called it the new lib order on Fox News. It was pretty funny. But people that want to fight against it, or is this them sending us a message saying, hey, this no longer applies. We're just going to implode the whole thing. And then what followed suit after this is, of course, the demolition of the Georgia Guidestones. Many of you probably are already aware of this because you all have your finger on the pulse anyways. But they decided to go ahead and take them all down. And, I don't like to see monuments destroyed. And even though these monuments were built in like the 70s, late 70s, early 80s, something like that, they're not ancient monuments. They're not old monuments, but monuments are monuments, and I don't think that they should be destroyed. But is it a sign from the powers that be that that's it? They're not going to go along with this plan anymore, and they're just going to implode everything? Or is it a sign from the universe saying that we're winning? That all really depends on how you translate the Guidestones, in my humble opinion, because I looked at the Georgia Guidestones and I don't see too much wrong with them. I know that's very controversial, but I see things from a very open mind, and I try not to get too caught up in any of the zeitgeist out there and just kind of try to think for myself. But when you really go over the guidelines, what do you have? Maintain humanity under 500 million in perpetual balance with nature. I was actually watching a George Carlin bit just the other day, and he was, this was like late 60s, early 70s. It was the one where he did the 7-letter words. I mean, the 7 words you can't say on TV, and he was wearing bell bottoms. And part of that bit, he was talking about there's 4 billion people on this earth, 4 billion. And that was a lot of people back then, but now we're coming up to like 8-9 billion people. And I was talking to somebody earlier, and they were like, there's plenty of land, there's plenty of this, there's plenty of that. That is very true. But unless things like oil are a renewable resource, which there's a lot of theories suggesting that it is, and I'm leaning more on the side that oil is a renewable energy, and it renews itself. It's really not about how many people you can fit into a landmass, but rather how many resources are those people taking? How many chickens does it take to feed 8 billion people every single day? How many cows? How many fields of vegetables and, everything that people eat? And one of the big things is like, all natural vegan diets and, all that kind of stuff. And that's all great. But when you think about organic farming, it's very difficult to keep organic organic produce because it's number one, you don't use pesticides, so you have a lot of lost crops. Number two, you've got to keep those moving. You got to keep them moving, and if they're not moving, then they're not going to be fresh. And when you chalk them up with preservatives, I'm not saying that you should. I'm just saying that's what they're doing. Monsanto and others like that. They're doing that so they can grow more crops, feed more people, and do all of that. Then we have factory farming. We have chickens. We have, chickens that are raised in these horrible, horrible conditions. And it's all to try to sustain the population. But at the same time, there's a lot of poison that's put into these foods, the preservatives and all of that. Is that for the purpose of trying to feed 8 billion people, or is it for the purpose of depopulation? I don't know. The zeitgeist out there seems to be that it's for the purpose of depopulation, so let's just go along with that. Why not? Because I've always thought, all of these little things that they do, everything from the vacation, which I can't believe we still can't talk about here on YouTube. I actually played a song, Damn It Feels Good to Be a Truther, and there was a little snippet in there from a mainstream media article about the vacation. And can people who have gotten the vacation die? And the doctor comes back and says, absolutely. YouTube flagged that video, and that wasn't even part of the video. That was just like a break that we went to. But they're still moving in really heavy with the censorship. But I can tell you this, the vacation was most definitely a depopulation agenda and altering the DNA and, all of that. I don't have to repeat myself on that. We've gone through that over many times. But the thing is, they've put all the information out there, and it's almost like it's always been like this. And I've said this since way back when we first started in like 2009. It's like they put their plans out. Almost maybe it's like a karmic thing. Maybe it's like, if you agree to it, then the karma doesn't come back and hit them. If you agree to the depopulation agenda, if you go and volunteer, you just take a look at the vacation situation in and of itself. Everybody had to sign a waiver, understanding that it's an experimental thing that they're putting into their bodies and there could be serious side effects. And people went out and signed this waiver anyways and got it. Justin Bieber, for example, that guy is kind of a douchebag to begin with, but I don't like to see people suffering anyway it goes. But this guy, he's got some major side effects of getting that, and half his face is like just completely jacked up. Because he had basically like a mini stroke after getting all this. And it's interesting because it's like, everybody put all the information out there. It's not like they didn't know. And these were the people who were really pushing for this. And I'm not like the mainstream media who will sit there and laugh at quote unquote anti-vacationers when they die from getting something. And then, they're blaming, they didn't get the vacation. They were anti-mask. They were anti-this. They were anti-that, et cetera, et cetera. And then laughing at those people's deaths. I don't do that. I don't laugh at people when they're injured from anything, no matter how much propaganda they've been pushing, no matter, what their stance was. But the thing is, all the information was out there. You had Malone and you had Boshi and you had several others. So they put all this information out there and tell you, it's like they tell you, hey, this thing that you're putting in your body, it's going to sterilize you. It's going to kill you. It's going to have these side effects. Sign here and say that you're okay with that. Same with the GMO food. Same with the fluoride in the water. Same with the mercury. Same with all of that. Everything is out there. And we finally come to a place to where it's like they're trying to cover up information now. But it's almost like, at first it was like survival of the smartest. And, here we are, completely healthy. We survived this. We're getting through this. Now it's coming to a point to where it's survival of the bravest and the ones who are willing to really stand on their principles and die for what they believe in. And here's the interesting thing is, if you're willing to die for what you believe in, then you actually survive. It's so weird because I was willing to die during 2020, 2021 to stand upon my principles and stand upon my morals against the vacation. Never took it. I think I got the zombie virus twice. I used that horse stuff that they're saying you're not supposed to use. I mean, 3 times. Let me say that 3 times. First time, which is March of 2020, I was sick as a dog for like 2 weeks. But it was like a light flu. It wasn't anything bad. The other 2 times that I got it, one time confirmed because I took a home test. I took that horse stuff, and within 24 to 48 hours, boom, I was better. And so I didn't listen to any propaganda out there. I thought for myself, and I looked at the data for myself, and here I am. And so are you. And I'm very proud of each and every one of you for standing on your morals and standing on your principles. But it's like not even survival of the smartest anymore. It's survival of those who are the most strong-willed. So we try to live an organic lifestyle. We try to be cautious and careful and conscious, that's what I should say, about what goes into our body and all that. So it's like this plan. They have to put their agenda out there. And people who are dumb enough to believe it, or to not to be people who are dumb enough to go along with it, despite the fact that information is out there, kind of deserve what they get. Now, this isn't my stance. This isn't my view. This is just my observations as to what's going on. But going back to the Guidestones, what does it actually say? Maintain humanity under 500 million in perpetual balance with nature. I think we should maintain the population in perpetual balance with nature. 500 million seems a little bit low, but when you look at the population growth throughout time, we didn't hit that billion mark until like the 1900s. And then it started to just like boom after that, 2 billion, 3 billion, 4 billion, 5 billion, 8 billion, 9 billion now. Pretty soon we're going to be 14, 15, 16 billion, and we just don't have the resources to sustain all of that. So what do we do to rectify all of that? Because again, it's not about how many people you can fit on land, but let me just, point out Las Vegas, for example. We're running out of water because the Hoover Dam is like, there's no water left here. Las Vegas is going to be a ghost town here pretty soon. And the Hoover Dam and Lake Mead, Mexico gets water from there, California gets water from there, Nevada gets water from there, and I think part of Colorado gets water from there too. So we've got several places that are going to be seriously impacted by droughts and all kinds of stuff like that, which is pretty interesting because I want to wait for Cherie when she comes on the show, but she's been reading the book of Enoch. And it's funny because I've never read that book. And so she started reading it for the first time, and she was saying, a lot of the stuff that we've been talking about on Beyond the Veil, it's in the book of Enoch, and it says those who are wise will be able to see the end times when they see these things happening. One being the sun turning white. And I remember talking about the CERN turning white way back in 2010. And I think this is, kind of a segue into the CERN thing, so I'll hold off on that for a second. But the sun turning white, droughts all over the place, the stars changing positions. I remember talking to Brooks Agnew back in like 2012, 2013 and saying, hey, the stars look out of alignment. What's going on here? And Brooks was like, well, they change during the spring and the winter and, so on and so forth. But the stars are looking like they're a little bit out of alignment as well. And not in a way that's a natural way. Like you take a look at the pyramids and they're lined up with Orion's belt. And from the time the pyramids were built to now, they're a little bit off, but they're still, pretty close to Orion's belt. But I'm talking about like major, like things going on in the sky. You just take a look at, the last couple of years from 2020 to 2022. How many freaking eclipses have we had? How many super red blood moons have we had? How many super blood moon eclipses have we had? I mean, we were having them like on a monthly basis, at one point in time. And it was just like, there was always some kind of lunar event taking place, something very, very, very strange going on in the sky. So I have to ask myself, what's going on? I know what's going on deep down inside because I know this is a holographic simulation and the simulation is shutting down on itself. But let's take a step back for a second and just look at it just from the broad perspective rather than the beyond the veil perspective. What's going on? It looks like we're heading more and more and more towards end times. But you take another look, guide reproduction wisely, improving fitness and diversity. That can be interpreted in a couple different ways, I don't know. I don't like guiding reproduction, but if you look at the movie Idiocracy, what happens is it's overrun by the lowest IQ people out there, because the lowest IQ people will have many, many, many children without even thinking about it. Those with a higher IQ are like, well, the economy kind of sucks right now. Inflation is through the roof. Our 401ks suck. Nobody's making money in the stock market. We can't afford to have any more kids, and a lot of people are thinking in that dynamic. And a lot of people don't want to bring kids into the state of the world the way it is right now. And still the lower IQ people are still reproducing, heading towards idiocracy. And if there's any marker we can look at, it's Congress. I mean, just look at Congress. We have the dumbest of the dumb in Congress. I mean, the president of the United States right now, who is a complete and total fraud, in my opinion, I'm not even going to go, cool. But anyways, it's, we're being represented by the biggest bumbling idiot that we've ever had in the history of the United States. I mean, I think he's probably in the history of all leaders out there. Throughout all of history, he's got to be the dumbest leader out there. And he's not a leader, he's just a puppet. We all know that. But I mean, this is the person representing the United States of America, while the entire world completely laughs at us and is looking at us like we're Venezuela or we're Iraq under Saddam Hussein or something like that. Remember when Saddam Hussein had elections and then he got 99% of the votes? It's the same kind of thing. And people are looking at us like that. But, guiding reproduction, I don't like interference from government. That should be something that should be one's own personal choice and how you choose to guide reproduction in your own sphere. But at the same time, I would like to see the IQ increase overall, to where people are thinking about multiple things rather than just, I just want to have a kid. I just want to have a kid, or oops, I had a kid at 15, 16 years old. And I have my views on Roe v. Wade. There were several other cases that were overturned. Besides Roe v. Wade, they're just focusing on Roe v. Wade. I'm not getting into the details because Cherie has a lot more details than I do. But, you know me. I've been, Trump 2020, Trump 2024. I'm totally all about that. I used to have an autographed picture of Trump right behind me during all the shows. And I will always be like that, because that guy was a great CEO. And that's what we need in this country. We need a CEO who's going to run this like a business, that's going to make sure everybody's taken care of. However, I'm not on the right and I'm not on the left. I don't play the left-right paradigm game. The only reason that I jumped in is because I saw the system itself, and the system itself is not broken. It's the people who are running the system that are breaking the system on purpose and using it to their own advantage. He didn't use the system to his advantage. He used it for the people's advantage and ran the system the way that it was supposed to be ran. But anyways, the Roe versus Wade thing, that was one big thing, in my humble opinion, standing in the way of the mandatory vacations. And, I don't believe in abortions. I don't think that they should be done. However, abortions have been done since the beginning of time. It's in the Bible. There's instructions on how to do abortions in the Bible, which is very funny, because a lot of these people who are like, yeah, Roe versus Wade is overturned, are very hardcore Christians, and they've never bothered to read their own book that gives instructions on how to do abortions, killing babies left and right. I mean, it says even in Psalms, take the babies, smash their heads against the rocks, go into your neighbor's village and rape and pillage and so on and so forth. The whole idea of Yahweh being Satan, yeah, absolutely. It's one and the same. It's one and the same, no doubt about it. But that's an old idea. I'm glad it's getting out there in the main zeitgeist now. But my point is that it's never been about babies, and it's never been about babies. And I don't want to be divisive on this situation, but you know what? I'm all about freedom, and I've got to protect freedom. And I definitely don't want to create more black markets. That's the last thing we need, is more freaking black markets, because black markets only breed more crime, and it breeds, the drug the drug wars, for example. I mean, nothing but violence and death and, people doing business in ways that is not good business. You legalize cannabis, all of a sudden you don't have any cannabis crimes anymore. There's legitimate people selling cannabis because there's no black market for cannabis anymore. And I think we can take that on a whole new level. I just don't like to create more black markets out there. And if there's anything that prohibition have shown us, is it's not going to stop anything. All it's going to do is create a criminal element, like Al Capone and during Prohibition when they prohibited alcohol. So again, I don't like to have the Supreme Court turn around and say, nope, women don't have a right to choose what happens to their body, and neither do I. I don't like that. I don't like where that's heading. Anyway it goes, I'm still not going to let them tell me what to do with my body. I mean, they can go to hell. I don't care. I'm not going to let them. I'm not going to let them. But again, I'm not going to be pro-abortion either. So it's a very interesting place to be when you have to stand up for a freedom that you don't agree with. And I wish a lot more people would come to these conclusions, because I think that, the anti-gun people out there, if they just realize, they can be anti-gun. They don't have to have guns. It's perfectly fine. They can live without guns, but other people have a right to have them. I just went to a restaurant just around the corner. There was a guy open carrying, and I went up and I said, hey man, thank you for doing that, because more people should do that. I actually felt safer with that guy open carrying in that restaurant than I would without somebody open carrying, because I know there's nobody's going to come in and try anything. Not that they would in that place anyways, but nobody's going to come in and try to rob the place when you clearly have customers open carrying. I should probably start open carrying. I just don't want to draw that kind of attention to me. I don't like to mess with the police. I try to stay away from police encounters. And that's the thing about open carrying, is that, they'll stop you, they'll check your ID, they'll do this and they'll do that, et cetera, et cetera. Sometimes even pull guns on you and, all kinds of stuff like that. I'd rather just conceal carry. But I don't like the fact that I have to get a license to conceal carry. That's another thing. It's, anyways, my stance though is I really don't like guns. I don't like them. I don't like their energy. I don't like the way they feel. I just don't like them. But I'd rather have one and not need it than need one and not have one. Likewise, I think women out there would agree that they'd rather be able to get an abortion and not need one than to not be able to get one when they actually need one. So, it is what it is. But, mankind has been doing this since the beginning of time. All you got to do is just take some Syrian rue seeds, and in the first trimester, boom, it provokes a miscarriage. I mean, it's really that easy. Second and third trimester, okay, we're talking about something different now. The baby's grown a lot. So, there has to be a little bit of a balance there. And I think there was a good, healthy balance there. It's just the libs were pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing for third trimester abortions and fourth trimester abortions. I know there's no fourth trimester, but I'm making a joke there because, it's like kids that are newborns, it's like once you're out of the womb, you're out of the womb. Okay. I get it. I mean, and a lot of kids, they're developed in the womb also after a certain period of time. So there has to be that balance there. But now what's going to happen? Backroom abortions, back alley abortions. Is that where we're heading now? It's not about that though. It's about controlling your body. And feel free to disagree with me if you want. 612-398-0600. And I completely understand when people are being pulled by their heartstrings and it's like, hey, killing babies. That's a very emotionally charged word. And that's something that anybody will stand behind, or stand against, I should say, is the killing of babies. But you got to look beyond the veil. You got to look beyond the veil and realize that they don't care about babies. If they cared about babies, they wouldn't be trafficking them all over and calling them pizza. They wouldn't be doing that. They don't care about babies. They care about controlling you. And that's a stance that I'm taking on that. So, I will protect your freedom even though I don't agree with it. So, unite humanity with a living new language. I don't like the term living language. And the reason for that is they call the Constitution a living document. And what that means is that it can be altered throughout time. So, for example, the big argument that they use with the Second Amendment is that, well, they didn't have AR-15s back then. So they didn't account for AR-15s when they wrote the Second Amendment. And back then they had muskets. So all they were talking about is muskets. So, they call that a living document where it can constantly change. But in actual fact, it can't. Those are our unalienable rights endowed to us by our Creator, whoever we believe our Creator is. And I like the way they left that open for interpretation by the individual. Who's my Creator? I'm my Creator. My rights are endowed by me, by being a sovereign spirit, so on and so forth. But a living new language. But maybe language does evolve when you really think about it. We use a lot of terminology here on Beyond the Veil that is actually ancient ideas, but we're framing them in a modern way. Computer simulation, the natives used to call it a dream world. Non-player characters, the Blavatsky used to call them those without the divine spark and those with the divine spark. Or Toth used to call them the children of light and the children of men, organic consciousness and non-player character consciousness. So we do have a living language. We do have evolution. And as language evolves, our understanding and consciousness starts to expand as well. However, when language devolves, that is when there is a problem. And I'm sure you've all seen that famous clip out there of the Supreme Court judge that they were grilling, and they ask her, "What is a woman?" And she says, "I don't know. I'm not a biologist." And it's like, yeah, okay, could be considered a living language, but that's actually a devolvement of the language where you don't even know what a woman is. Now there's 52 different genders and all kinds of stuff like that. People can't define a woman, so on and so forth. It's very simple. A woman is somebody who can carry a child. Simple as that, or somebody who is born with the equipment to carry a child. And that includes people who are born with the equipment to have a child, but that are defective, or people who have had those parts of themselves removed, okay? It encompasses all of that. So it's all encompassing of that. And a man is somebody who has the equipment to put their seed into somebody that is able to have a child, and that's that. So to me, it's very simple. But the whole living language thing, okay, I can see how it's a new world order propaganda, but does it have to be, or can we take it, can we use it for our own gnosis and growth? I think it can be taken two different ways. Rule, passion, faith, tradition, all things with a tempered reason. And I wholeheartedly agree with that. One of the big things that just happened just recently is the Supreme Court ruled that they can do prayer in school now. That's a very scary prospect, because Sheree's been watching The Handmaid's Tale, and she got me to watch one episode. I just couldn't get into it, but it's basically about a future in the United States that turns into a theocracy. And the first thing they do is they get rid of Roe versus Wade. The second thing they do is they allow prayer in school. So what I see it as like a tug of war. Remember in Squid Game how they were doing the tug of war scene, and what they did is they all pulled back on the rope. Okay, imagine that scenario going on. It's a tug of war game, except for what they're doing is they're doing a game of tug of war, and then all of a sudden the left lets go. And then everybody that's pulling against the left now all of a sudden is thrusted to the far right, the extreme far right. We're talking about theocracy. We're talking about the Bible taking over. We're talking about, and you know how they are with the Bible. They pick and choose. It's not like the whole Bible is it's whatever they want out of the Bible to be their moral compass. I mean, the 10 Commandments aren't even the freaking 10 Commandments. The ones that they put up in the courthouses, it's not even the 10 Commandments. The 10 Commandments are actually found in Exodus 30, not in Exodus 20. Exodus 20 was like a list of like 10 suggestions. But if you go to Exodus 30, it'll actually talk about how Moses goes back up, rewrites the tablets that were taken and smashed, and they call it the 10 Commandments, and it's completely different than the 10 Commandments that come out of Exodus 20. but people run with Exodus 20 as the 10 Commandments because people don't know what the hell they're talking about when it comes to the Bible. You can look this up for yourself. But these are the same people who are going to pick and choose whatever. And I would rather live in a liberal hellhole than live in a theocratical hellhole. Because if you take a look around the world, the most prosperous worlds out there, the most prosperous countries are really atheist countries where spirituality is practiced on an individual basis, and they're not really like, imposing any kind of like religion in a governmental state. Switzerland, for example, one of the most prosperous countries in the world, no religion. The majority of people are atheists. I don't like atheism because atheism denies your own divinity. And so that's where they lose me. But you take a look at Saudi Arabia and they're crucifying people in the streets for being gay and for things like that. You go to Dubai, you can get arrested for just kissing your wife in public. You have the morality police. And along with the censorship that we're seeing all over the internet, we're also seeing a lot of morality police. And that's what all of this is starting with. And it's getting so bad that, it was interesting. We were at this restaurant. We were at a Denny's, and I don't want this to come off the wrong way at all, but they're doing this thing called TikTok creators specials, and I'm flipping through these, and it's like TikTok creators, like big accounts on TikTok, and they have Denny's like teamed up with them to do these specials, like chicken and watermelon, for example, and I'm like, why is it black people with the chicken and watermelon special? And I'm like, that's fucking racist. And Cherie was like, well, it was racist. It's racist now to put white people on there. And I was like, this is insane. It had Mexicans, Mexican TikTok creators. And it was this chunky Mexican lady too, and her husband. And they had like this Mexican dish. And I'm like, that's racist. I'm sorry, but that's freaking racist. But that's, supposedly freaking diversity. I don't know. I was looking at it, I'm like, how freaking ridiculous is this in the times that we're living in, where if you put a white person on somewhere, that's considered racist just by default, just like that. So I don't know. That's the liberal hellhole that we're escaping from. But are we going to find ourselves in the complete opposite, where now it's your religion that is, the moral compass? Because it's always been like the two, right? It's the oppressed and the oppressors. And I've gone back over this through our anti-QAnon shows. We did Operation Trust, and you break down the people into two different groups, the oppressors and the oppressed. The oppressors can do no wrong. The oppressors can go out there and riot and loot and tear down buildings and shoot people and all of that, and they can do no wrong because they're the oppressed. I might have said oppressors, but I meant the oppressed. The oppressors, anything they do is wrong. Like Kyle Rittenhouse, for example, defending himself. That's automatically seen as wrong just because he's the color of his skin, he's the oppressor. So are they going to see that? Christianity has always been like, oh, we're the oppressed, we're oppressed, or oppressed. Then they turn into the oppressors and they create that, that whole class of the oppressed versus the oppressors. And it's funny because some of my friends who are like Wiccan and stuff like that, they're like, hey, if prayer's allowed in school, then you better tell your children, go out there and make your little pentacle circles. Go out there and do your little rituals. Go out and do all of that. And I remember when the Church of Satan was trying to bring in the Baphomet, I think it was in Georgia or something like that. They really don't believe in Satan. That's the interesting thing about the Church of Satan, is they don't really believe in Satan. They're atheists. But Satan is the adversary. Satan is the opposite of the church, especially LaVey Satanism. It's a mockery. They do the Black Mass as a mockery of the Mass that they do. But in actual fact, they really don't believe in a deity. They believe in themselves. Which is, I guess, kind of what we do here at Beyond the Veil. We're, creator beings ourselves and all of that. But anyways, so the Church of Satan wanted to put the Baphomet up there. And the only reason they wanted to do that is just to fuck with the Christians. Because it's like, if y'all want the 10 Commandments, we got to have freedom of religion. We're going to put our Baphomet up there. And it's interesting because the Baphomet is actually a much more positive symbol, in my opinion, than a cross. The Baphomet is as above, so below. It talks about unity. It's got the I don't remember what it's called. It's the DNA. It starts with a C. I don't remember. It's right up here, at the torso. But anyways, the Baphomet is actually not a scary symbol when you really understand what it is. But they used the Baphomet, and everybody was up in arms about it. And it's like, oh, you want freedom of religion? Oh, no, you want freedom for your religion, but nobody else's religion. And what's interesting is that Christianity makes up like 9% of the population, and that's it. And somehow this one religion was able to go through time and split time in half with the whole AD BC thing. I think it's a bunch of BS, but when Christianity was spread, how much time did we actually lose? I was looking at this, and I was actually reading about how medieval times may not have actually happened. And Cherie was actually talking about King Arthur and Merlin and all that. And I was like, King Arthur and Merlin and all them, they were just legends. They never ruled. There was no King Arthur. And she's like, yes, there was. And I was like, no, there really wasn't. Like, look it up. And she looked it up, and she's like, oh, wow, these people are just like fictional. Like they're literally fictional, and loosely based off of like certain some kings and different eras and so on and so forth. But I was coming to a point to where it was a couple different kings that got together, and they decided to change the time. And when they changed the time, in order to make them rule at a certain time and with a certain length of time, they had to make up like 1,300 years or something like that. So according to this theory, it's only the year like 1700, not exactly 1700, but I mean, somewhere around the 1700s. We're not really in 2022. And I guess that would be what, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 5 years. So about 500 years that was just made up. I think I said 1300. I don't know where I got that number 1300 from, but about 500 years missing that was just written down, and that's it. Now, there is some controversy behind that because they have found some artifacts that supposedly date during that time, but there seemed to be this 500-year period where nothing happened. There were no major wars. There were no major battles. There were no major buildings that were constructed. There's this time gap there, and archaeologists are disputing that right now. But it's interesting because who knows what the hell time it is? Like, do we know what the hell time it is? Do we know that history is as they've told us that it is? I mean, I can tell you this for sure. Everything they've told us is bullshit. So, of course, history's bullshit too. But how far does the bullshit extend? I mean, is it really a time that... did they really mess with time so much that they added 500 years of history that never existed just to completely and totally throw us off of what time it actually is? I mean, the only accurate way to tell the time is by looking at the stars, in my humble opinion. But anyways, back to these Guidestones real quick. I'm just going to run through these real quick. Rule with passion, faith, tradition, and all things with tempered reason. I agree. George Carlin said it best. He was wrapping up the 10 commandments into one commandment. And then he said, and don't forget the most important commandment, thou shalt keep thy religion to thyself. And so faith, tradition, passion, rule them with tempered reason. Like, be logical about them. Don't go throw it in people's faces. Separation of church and state, all of that. I agree with that. That sounds good. Protect people and nations with fair laws and just courts. That's a good thing. Let all nations rule internally, resolving external disputes in a world court. I would be all for that. That would help end some wars. But what happens if the world court rules in a certain way and then the country doesn't like it? Well, then they're just going to start a war. It's as simple as that. But it is going into New World Order territory here because we're talking about like all of the countries all working together. But they're talking about nations. They're not talking about one world government, but they are talking about nations. But some kind of governing body that is like a world court. Could be New World Order, I don't know. Avoid petty laws and useless officials. I wholeheartedly agree with that. I love that. Avoid petty laws and useless officials. I mean, seatbelt. Here in Las Vegas, they're trying to do click it or ticket. And the Las Vegas cops were like, yeah, we're not doing that. We're not doing that. We're not getting paid enough to sit around and ticket people for seatbelts. And it faded away. But in Texas, they did that click it or ticket. And you had I remember I was getting pulled over like every 2 or 3 weeks for something stupid. Anything they could find, like license plate not properly illuminated because I had one lamp out, one little light bulb. I had 2 light bulbs on my license plate. One little light bulb was out on my license plate. Pull me over, give me a bunch of shit for it. Pulling me over for like using my cell phone and for like not wearing a seatbelt and ridiculous things like that. Tint being too heavy and stuff like that. Las Vegas cops, what I respect about them is they don't mess around with that. Like they don't. If they stop you for something, they might give you a ticket for your tint, but they're not going to stop you for your tint. Everybody, including the fucking cops here, have illegal tint, and because it's so freaking hot. And it's not only the shade of the tint, but it's a type of tint as well on your car that keeps the heat out. But everybody has freaking pretty much black tint. I've got like 15% all around my car. I can't do the 5%. I just can't see out of the 5%. It makes it too hard to see. But I even got the windshield tinted, and the windshield tinting your windshield is like totally illegal. Nobody gives a shit. And I agree with that. Okay. Avoid petty laws. Those are petty laws. Drug laws are petty laws. All this nonviolent and victimist laws are petty laws, in my opinion. I agree with that. Balance personal rights with social duties. I don't know if I agree with that too much. I think personal rights are personal rights, and that's it. And I don't think we have social duties. I got called in for jury duty. I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't think I'm going to go. I'm kind of split. You guys let me know in the chat. Let me know in the comments what you think. Because on one hand, I have the ability to go in there and make a difference. Like I can go in there and I can talk about jury nullification, especially if it's a victimless crime. I hope that it's like a drug charge or, something like that without a victim, because no matter what pile of evidence they put in front of me, I am going to stick to my guns and I'm going to talk to that jury and I'm going to say, we, the people, are not going to put up with this crap here. Whether it's a speeding ticket or whatever it is, as long as it's a victimless crime, I'm just going to say, look, we don't need to put up with this crap here. Okay. They've taxed the hell out of us. They're trying to do click it and ticket. They're raising the cost of rent. They're raising the cost of food. They're taxing gasoline at a time when gasoline is already through the freaking roof. California just did a huge freaking gas tax increase. We have the ability right now, right here, as the jury right now, to say, no, we're not going to take this. And we can set this example and nullify this and say, no, we are not going to put somebody in jail for possessing a substance, or we're not going to put somebody in jail for, or even fine them for an offense that doesn't have a victim. I have the opportunity to do that, which is going to be pretty cool, because I will stick to my guns and it will be a freaking mistrial. I guarantee you it will be a mistrial if the other juries don't, or not a mistrial, a hung jury, if the other jurors don't go along with it, because I will stick to my jury nullification rights 1000%. On the other hand, I don't want to be involved in that stupid fucking system. And I hate that shit because, and that's what triggered this, is balance personal rights with social duties. I don't think we have any social duties whatsoever, but they sent me a summons. And if I don't appear for the summons, they can actually fine me $500. They can come and they can take my money. And if I don't pay them the $500, then I can go to jail for it. So you guys and gals, let me know. Should I go in there and fuck with them? Or should I go in there and tell them that I am a Trump supporter and that I'm very against the police, and I even did a DJ set with fuck the police while the police were banging on the door, and so on and so forth. You guys and gals, let me know out there what you think. What would you do? Would you waste your time and do that, or would you do your social duty and go out there? I'm thinking, maybe I have the opportunity to help somebody. Maybe I do. It'll be a fun experience nonetheless. I don't know if I'll get picked. If I do get picked, though, if I do go, I'm going to say all the right things to get picked, because that would be my point, to go in there and get picked that way, especially if it's a non-violent crime and there's no victim. Oh man, I can't wait. Okay, if that happens, all right, the more that I think about it, the more I want to do it, because I want to see the prosecutor's face when we come back with either not guilty or hung jury. And an abundance of evidence. I mean, somebody gets caught with freaking coke and ecstasy and LSD and all this, and he's at a rave party, and he's partying and he's doing all this, and they got all this evidence. And it's just like, jury nullification. Nope, not going to happen on my watch. But then again, it could be the opposite. It could be somebody who actually hurt somebody. It could be a murder case. And that's what I'm concerned about the most. It could be a murder case and it could be there for like freaking weeks, you know? So I don't know. If it's a murder case, then I have the opportunity to do justice, you know, and to put somebody away that needs to be put away, you know. But I'll definitely be a voice of reason in that jury box, no doubt about it. But you know, I don't know. We'll see. So prize truth, beauty, love, seek harmony with the infinite. I agree with that 100%. And be not a cancer in the earth. Leave room for nature. Leave room for nature. So I don't see what the big deal is about these Guidestones and why they're so bad, except for maintain humanity under 500 million. But you know what I hate? I hate lying by omission. I hate lying by omission. The mainstream media does this crap all the time, and the truther community does it too. They just read maintain humanity under 500 million, and they stop there, and they don't say in perpetual balance with nature. When you add in perpetual balance with nature, that kind of starts to change the idea here and makes it a little less sinister, in my humble opinion. Or maybe I'm just falling into the propaganda and this is all a big New World Order takeover and that's it. But I remember doing on a show about Nibiru way back in 2010, the Guidestones came up and the guy who was talking about Nibiru coming through was saying these Guidestones aren't for now. These are for later. These are for after a nuclear war, or these are for after Nibiru coming through, or after some kind of disaster, when the population is lower than 500 million, and it means maintain the population under 500 million. Like, don't let it grow past that at that point. But that brings in a lot of control. And when I look at the words, maintain humanity under 500 million, yeah, that seems like population reduction, no doubt about it. No doubt about it. But again, we are in that situation where we don't have enough resources for everybody. That's just a sad fact. I mean, we're watching it right now. Here's an interesting fact that I learned today, though. I know that the United States has this massive oil reserve. I knew that, but I didn't know how much oil they have. We have enough oil to self-sustain ourselves for 200 years, according to a source that I talked to today. And if that's true, we have enough oil to sustain ourselves for 200 years while we find an alternate energy supply. I think we don't have to be paying $6 a gallon at the pump. I just filled up my car. It was $100 freaking dollars to fill up my car. We don't have to do that, but they're doing it anyways. And I understand the principle behind this. Buy up all the Saudis' oil, buy up all of Russia's oil, buy up all the oil from everybody else, and be the last man standing with this huge oil reserve. And if you can maintain that, then you control the whole freaking world at that point. You know, especially if the whole world is still dependent on oil and you're the only one that has oil, you can charge whatever the hell you want for it at that point. So it is a posturing, you know, it is the ability to posture in a certain way, but it's not for hundreds of years from now. You know, I think by that time, oil will be a thing of the past and we would have found a new kind of energy, maybe renewable energy, maybe free energy. I don't know, something would have been, we will find something in the next 200 years to make our massive oil reserve irrelevant. And it's funny because Biden went over to Saudi Arabia and he was like complaining and he was like, hey, you know, lower the oil prices. And they were like, fuck you. They were like, go tap into your oil reserve, just like Trump did. You know, you cut off all the pipelines. And it was pathetic. Our president is going over to OPEC and Saudi Arabia and begging them to lower the oil prices. And he's not doing a good job of begging them, but he shouldn't be begging to begin with. We should be in the position of power where we're demanding, you know. That's what Trump did with China. And that's what happened, you know, is he went up against China, but he went to China. They were making a lot of our medications. And he's like, okay, you don't want to give us a better deal on the meds? I'll go to India. How about that? You know, you want to charge people $1,200 a month for insulin? We'll go to India and we'll get it for $16 a month. And so people are only paying $16 a month. And as soon as Biden gets back in office, nope, let's sign that away, undo that. Everybody's paying an average of $1,200 now a month for insulin, for diabetes, life-saving drug, something that saves your life. But when it comes to the vacation, oh, that's free. That's free. And you even get $100 if you do it. Or you get a beer. Or remember the donuts? People did it for a donut. And I will say this till the very end, Klondike missed a golden opportunity. What would you do for a Klondike bar? Would you get a vaccine? Oh, I said the word shit. Just kind of slipped out of there. I guess I'll have to edit that out of YouTube. But anyways, would you stick an experimental DNA altering thing into your body? Uh-huh. Would you do it twice? Uh-huh. Would you do it 3 times? Uh-huh. Would you do it 4 times? Uh-huh. I can see those commercials. They should have given out freaking Klondike bars. Anyways. So, back to what I was saying. Georgia Guidestones have been demolished. So when we read the Guidestones and understand the Guidestones, okay? And again, this is just my perspective, and I'm not saying that it's factual or anything like that. It's just my interpretation of it. Who am I? I'm just Chris G. I reset the goddamn matrix. What the fuck do I know? But anyways, it's my perspective on this. I don't see too much bad in it. But I do see how it could be, New World Order propaganda and an element of control. But I'll tell you this, it's not nearly the element of control as, say, a far right theocracy would be. It seems balanced, and that's what my ancient soul is all about. My ancient soul is all about balance. So I take a look at that, and now the Guidestones have just been blown up. What message are they sending to us? I believe, and what I feel, and this was my first instinct, and this is going on nothing at all except just intuition, is that they blew it up. It wasn't one of us. It wasn't an anti-New World Order person. It wasn't anything like that. It was one of them or them blowing them up and saying, okay, we're getting rid of this plan here. We are not going to rule passion, faith, tradition with tempered reason. We're not going to let all nations rule internally, resolving external disputes in world court. We're not going to avoid petty laws and useless officials. We're not going to balance personal rights with social duty. We're not going to prize truth, beauty, love, seek harmony with infinite. We're not going to be a cancer. We will be a cancer on the earth. We won't leave room for nature, and so on and so forth. That could be them just saying, that's it. We're going to push the button. We're pulling the trigger. And there's going to be nuclear war because not enough of the population is thinking in a higher consciousness dynamic, or maybe too much of the population is thinking in a lower consciousness dynamic. And they're just like, hey, a lot of these people got to go. And, it might even be something as simple as them losing control over their systems. And if they're losing control of their systems, they're just like, well, I better burn it all down before somebody else gets control out of it. Because it's like, it's like that kid, fighting over a toy with everybody, and then, instead of sharing the toy, the kid just chooses to just break it. It seems like maybe they're sending that message out there, saying, okay, well, if everybody's going to fall for all these divide and conquer tactics, and the thing is, I ask myself too. I watch the mainstream media and I ask myself, is some of this a test? Like, is it like a test of humanity? And maybe it's not even the quote unquote elite that are doing this. Maybe it's just karma in and of itself. Maybe it's just the universal energies. If I sit back as a creator being, I take a look and I see humanity and being tested. And it's not being tested by some, hidden cabal, but rather being tested by the matrix itself. And I see people failing miserably, like, 2020, when everybody went along with the entire agenda, we failed miserably. And I started to question, does the human species even have a right to exist at this point? If they're willing to turn on each other for something as stupid as a statue, or something as stupid as a political ideology, or something as stupid as a face diaper, that does absolutely nothing, or something as stupid as a vacation, something like that, like anything that people can divide each other, can divide themselves with, and fall into the fear and fall into the hate and the negative frequency that comes along with it. Do people even deserve to be around anymore? I don't think so. I mean, I can tell you this, if it was my choice, I'd be like, pull the plug on the whole thing. Pull the plug on the whole thing. Too many organic consciousness are suffering. NPCs are running wild. The machine is totally out of control. It's virus infected. The virus is everywhere. They're trafficking children all over the place. They're doing these rituals, which are, they involve children, but they're not it's not for sexual gratification. Let me just put it like that. It's for energy harvesting. It's major energy harvesting, and it's an abomination. It's harvesting energy in the most abominable way, and the destruction of the energy that's in it. Like, the whole machine is corrupt all up and down the line. I've said this a million times over. Once I get out of the machine, my vote is going to go to turning off the machine and not turning it back on. Like, once we get back to base reality, I'm not going to be voting to turn this machine back on because of the amount of suffering that has gone on in this machine. And we gave the NPCs a choice in 2020. Like, that was the middle of the Matrix reset. Right in the middle. You guys have a choice. Do you want to continue, or do you want to stay with this virus? Do you want to stay infected with the virus? And the virus is a mind virus. The virus is a mind virus of fear, of hate, of control, wanting to control others. Live and let live. That's the way it's supposed to be. But instead, it was them going mask, 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 mask. I mean, how many people were physically assaulted? Not even by police, but by regular people out there. How many people were yelled at, chastised, all of this? I watch YouTube, and YouTube's always recommending me Karens going wild, right? Karens in the wild. It's a YouTube channel. And a lot of the quote-unquote Karens are people in 2020 and 2021 who didn't want to wear a mask, and they were calling them Karens. And it's like, no, that's not a Karen. A Karen is somebody who is going up and bothering somebody about not wearing a mask. It's not the other way around. But it's been twisted around, and it's so disgusting to watch. People who are standing for their rights, and not just themselves, but others and their children and their children's children, and even those who are oppressing them, and to see the collective hive mind turning against them, and not only, attacking them for standing on their rights, but physically attacking them, actually seeing them as the enemy for standing upon their rights and saying, no, we're not going to take this. We're not going to take this. We're not going to take this. So it's been turned all the way upside down. And if it was up to me, I turn off the whole fucking machine. And, you take a look at the censorship, you take a look at everything that's going on, and we're in a lot of trouble. We are in a lot of trouble. So on that note, I'm going to take a quick break, and then I want to talk about CERN on the other side. I may cut it here for YouTube, and keep the rest for Patreon. But when Cherie gets back, I'm going to elaborate on it a lot more. Soft drink. Kiss the one you love right now. You never know the last time is going to be. Thank you very much for tuning in and having fun with me. We will get into some deeper content as LOL, Chris the Muslim Dream. I don't know if you ever saw, I don't know if it was Dark Matter or something like that, but the Muslim dies and he goes and it's 72 virgins. And it's like all these computer geeks with glasses on. And he's like, these are your 72 virgins. And he's like, I thought they were going to be women. He's like, no, nobody ever said they were going to be women. These are 72 virgins. And you've got a 40-year-old guy that's never been laid. And he's like, hey, I'm one of your virgins. Does it ever say in the Quran that they're beautiful women? I think Muslims just assume that. But what if it's 72 guys with micro penises that have never been laid before? All right. Kiss the one you love right now. You never know the last time it's going to be. Thank you very much for tuning in. Thank you for the laughs too. I really needed that. That's a great way to start the day. Love ya. And I'll see you hopefully tonight with Mrs. Geo. And we'll see you even further beyond the veil. Love each and every one of you so much. You guys are just, this is the best audience on YouTube, like the best, because it's not an audience, it's a tribe. It's a BTV tribe. Love you.